Right, hello guys, welcome back to the new edition of this channel. You're currently in basketball. Most of the games that we have, it seems like everything is kind of dry, but the available ones that we have, we are going to look into the risky line and the save line. Now, it now depends on you guys if you want to go for the risky line and if you want to go for the save line. There are some people that are asking me that, okay, what is the safe line and what is the risky line? So I'm going to explain to you guys how it works and how you can also get your own risky line and how you can get your save line. So it is very, very simple steps. So we will use the available basketball games that we have, although for tomorrow games I think we have maximum of 26 games, and out of these 26 games, most times the bookmakers don't provide us enough data for the analysis. Now I have been trying to avoid this particular league, this USA NBA Summer League. It is not the regular league that we all are familiar with, so that happens to be one of the reasons why I used to run away from it. Because when it comes to basketball, the consistency in basketball is not that very certain. There is high chance of losing, and that happens to be one of the reasons why I always avoid games that the tournament is kind of maybe like a warm up. And another thing is that there are some tournaments that most of these particular teams don't often meet against each other, just like these international qualification games that they've been playing. Sometimes teams that you are expecting them to play over 50, over 150, over 160, they will end up playing under 110, under 115. It happens very well in basketball. However, we are going to look into all these games except for the ones that we won't be able to access their data. Now, without wasting much of our time, we are going to look right from the international games that we have here, and I'm going to tell you guys the kind of factors that I always consider. So, this is how we've been doing it on the edition of Crucial Analysis on big odds. So, now depends on the kind of odds that we are able to generate, and it now depends on you if you want to leave some games or edit them out, because out of these particular slips, I will include the risky tips, I will include the safe tips. Now it is up to you if you are going to remove all the risky tips and leave all the safe tips, and it's now up to you if you are going to leave the risky tips and edit out safe tips. It happens very well because I once won some games that happens to be risky tips with a very, very good odds, 1.7, 1.6. All right, so without wasting much of our time, let us look into these games one by one. I'm very sure if you are familiar with this particular channel, you already know the first factors that we always look into whenever we want to predict our basketball games, and that is the average points between these particular two teams. So far, the average point is more than the league average point. Then we are good to go for the game as over. So we can also consider some factors like the average points scored and points considered by both teams. Using that alone can also give you insight of what the risky line will be. The only problem I'll be having with this particular match is that these two teams, they've not been playing so well against other opponents for this particular tournament. Frequently it is just international tournaments, so I will rely on my basic strategy on basketball, which happens to be my standard strategy. So standard strategy says that whenever you're able to get your average point, which is higher than the league average point, that happens to be the risky line, or maybe that is where your starting point of determining if you are going to risk the game or play safe. So from the average point, which is 160 that you guys are seeing on the screen, you can start subtracting maybe probably 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10, even up to 20. Depends on how safe you want your games to be, and you know depends on the available line that the bookmakers are providing. Whenever I'm able to get the average point like this and I want to play safe, I always subtract 10, unless the bookmakers provide extraordinary odd line for me to go with. Now let us look at this particular game. If you want to take the risk for this game, you can actually go directly with the 160, and if you want to play safe, you can subtract 10, and that is 150. So if the bookmakers are providing over 150, then you should know that there is high chance, something like 99% chance, that you are going to win. But unfortunately, the bookmakers know what they are doing. They will They will not provide you with the odd line that will actually make you win. Now this is 178.5. The risk there is that this particular game is not a game that you can predict as under, because naturally what we're supposed to predict the game is over 150. That is if you want to play safe. But you should not say because the odd line is very high up to 178 and you want to go for Honda. The game can end up as 190 based on the start. These two teams they score points very well. Depends on the atmosphere of the game. So we are going to skip this particular match. Let's check the match between Canada and Jamaica. So you check the head to head new. But unfortunately, this particular game, the bookies do not provide us the data that we want to look for. And if I should put you guys through the manual strategy, it will take a lot of our time. You can actually browse through this particular channel to watch most of our basketball videos. You can watch all the basketball videos to gain more insight on how our strategies works out. I think this will be one of the reasons why I'm going to skip these international games. We are limited with data and information. Okay, so we have data here, but the problem there is the average point of these two teams is lower than the league average point, which signals under. But in basketball, it is very risky for you to be predicting your game as under. And if you want to predict your game as under, that is 151 or something like that, and you add like 20 or 10, and you want to predict under 160, maybe 165 or under 171. If you go for this under 171, the odd is around 1.78. There's another probability that the game can end up as 176 or the game ending up as over 177. So I think we are going to skip these international games that I did not want to. I was trying to avoid skipping it before, but I think we got no choice now than to skip it. Okay, now let us look into the NBA Summer League. Unfortunately, the odd line that they are giving us happens to be a wicked line. They want to force us into predicting something that may not be accurate. That is the problem. The odd line is very, very tight. Alright, no problem. Let us check the USA WNBA. That is their women. That is their women's league. So based on this start, don't forget whenever the arrow is turning down, that is whenever the average point is lower than the league average point, you need to avoid the game, except based on some factors that you consider, maybe the consistency, the trends, how the two teams score points very well. So if I want to take risk on this particular game, I can just decide to say, okay, I will be going for over 158. Now, if you are going for 158 in this particular game, the bookmakers will provide you the odd line that is very low, because they know that these two teams, they happen to be teams that are not known for scoring higher points. Now, if you want to take the risk on this particular game, let's say you want to go for over 158. Now you see, this is 158. You want to take risk. You can see that is 2.26 odd. But if you want to play safe, it is 148.5. Now this is where the problem comes in. Most times whenever I follow games like this, that the average point scored by the two teams is lower than the league average point, and I go for the save line like this, sometimes the game always end up as 143. So now depends on if you want to edit it or leave it just like this. So I'm going to leave it just like this. Now it is up to you guys if you want to leave it or edit it by reducing the odds to maybe over 143. So it is up to you. Now let us check the next game. That is the match between Minnesota Lynx and Connecticut Sun. Now looking at the head to head new, you can see the average point of these two teams is 169.4, and the average point for the women's NBA league is 171, which shows that This particular game is a risky tips if you are going for it as over points, so you need to be very very careful. Now if I want to take the risk on this particular game, I will try to consider their uh consistency, and the only problem I'll be having is that if you look at this particular game, this league they score points like water. You can experience over 200 in it. But it is now a shock to me that a match actually ended up at 68 and 57 in a league whereby they score up to like 200 points. And this is like 120 something points. So that is basketball for you. However, if I want to take the risk of going for this particular game, I will consider, yeah, I can consider going for over 166. Yeah, I can consider going for over 166. That is if you are taking risk, big risk. That is 150, 166. And if you are playing safe, don't forget that naturally, even if we are going for the safe line in this particular game, we are still taking risk because this game did not meet up with games that we always predict as over points. So we are just trying to take a little risk on it. Now, if you want to play safe, then that is 156. I'm subtracting 10 from the from the risky line, and I'm getting 156. Now the bookmakers are providing us extra points below because they know what they are doing. They know that this particular game is not a game that you should be expecting so many points from it like that. But now it depends on you if you want to edit or leave it in this particular save. So alright, so let's proceed and let us leave the zone that we checked earlier. So we are going to look into the match and between Los Angeles Park and Stone. So this is another poor game that has a poor data that I would like to completely skip. The average point for the two teams is 167.5 and the average point for the league is 171. So this is not a good game to go with. So basketball is kind of dry, very very dry, very very dry. So okay, so we have a good game with a good data here. The average point of this league is 158.6. Imagine that. And the average point of these two teams is 182.7. This happens to be a very good game to go for us over. Now, it depends on the line that the bookmakers will provide. If the bookmakers want us to win, they are going to provide us the line that actually matched our analysis. Based on my own observation, although if I want to use my own standard strategy, I will subtract 10 from 182 and I'll be getting 172. But based on the other factors that I considered, like the average points scored, their form, their performances, and their trends, how consistent they are, the best option for this particular game is actually over 161.5. That is if you are taking the risk. But if you want to play safe, it's best to go for 151 if you want to play safe. But if you are taking risk over 161, now you see the line that the bookmakers are providing, that is 1.64. Let's assume that you want to go for the first half over point. Let's say you are going for first half over 75.5. What I'm seeing here is over 80 for the first half, so this is ridiculous and scary. Despite the fact that the game has a very good odd. Let's check this Uruguay League and let's see if we have what we are looking for. So don't worry guys, by weekend we will start getting our 100 odds plus as usual, so we can edit out as many games as we want. Here we are limited with data, so that happens to be one of the reasons why, because I cannot be using the manual strategy to derive the average point. It is not easy to get that. So unfortunately, due to lack of information and data, we are able to get just Two games. Okay, this time around I'm going to share with you guys the booking code. So this is the booking code. Don't forget these two games that we got safe. We are not supposed to actually we are not supposed to play them because they are not games that actually meet up with the foundational strategy, the factors that we always consider to predict over points. These two games did not meet up. So playing them is like taking risks. So despite the fact that we are able to get just two games, you still need to edit. Alright, so thanks for watching. See you guys in the next edition. Don't forget to like our video, subscribe to this particular channel, drop your comments in case you have any question, and also you can join us on our Telegram platform to engage with us in predicting most of our football games. See you guys in the next edition. Bye bye.